Let the games begin.
Welcome to the 25th episode of News Dump, where we run through the hottest topics in the Lewis County news scene and discuss. I'm local podcast producer Aaron Vantile, joined as always by low energy Eric Schwartz and the Nightcrawler. Jared Wenzelberger, the Chronicle's ace photographer and resident teenager, is here to impart his wisdom on the local news and whatever topics he may have been covering lately. It's Sunday, November 29th, and I think we're all still suffering from the old Thanksgiving hangover just a little bit. This is going to be a shorter show for you.
You always say that, and I always endeavor to make it as long as possible, which I will
haven't-
continue to do today as I filibuster my way through the 25th quarter century mark of this beloved podcast.
It's a commemorative podcast, and we're going to be giving away some big prizes at the end, so
Some
stay
gold
tuned
coins
for that.
with our faces on them.
No, we won't. I haven't even put together any Facebook comments of the week, so if you have a Facebook comment you liked a lot, feel free to turn off the podcast when we get to that section and read it aloud and make your own comments, and it'll be kind of a choose-your-own-adventure section. I will mark that later in the podcast unless I forget, which is most likely.
We should also note that this is the first in a tryout series to replace Jackson Gardner, who is no longer with the company or this podcast.
Because he died.
Because he died. Crawler has been here before. We mock him nearly every episode. For those who don't know him, he is the staff photographer here at the Chronicle, and we're happy and sad to have him at the same time.
He is on his phone as we speak, probably making a new TikTok.
It looks like he's on the Chronicle's Facebook page, desperately trying to catch up on the news.
Crawler, if you want to pull up some comments you like, you can read those at the end, too.
I'll think about that for sure.
Thank you for being here, Crawler, insofar as you are here. We're going to start with the little news out of Mossyrock. Mossyrock passes an ordinance allowing businesses to stay open.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about them restocking the hatcheries down there.
Ah,
whoa,
he's
Crawler.
up on his local news.
No, this seems like a slightly more pertinent bit of news.
They didn't restock anything in Mossyrock. He's talking about the Mossyrock hatchery and the South Lewis County Pond and Borst Pond are just full of fish right now.
Wow, so get out there and catch a fish. I bet Eric Trent has been doing that.
Yeah, sports editor Eric Trent. He rescued a possum today. If you haven't seen it at the Chronicle's Facebook page, he's a hero and a slayer of wildlife.
I also helped rescue a cow today.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I was running out in Adna, and a local farmer was trying to herd a cow back into the pen, and so I kind of stopped my slow run and helped out a little bit, and eventually the cow, just jumped back through the fence, and all was
A
good.
lot of jokes here with admins and livestock, but I'm going to leave it alone. It's low-hanging fruit and above my station.
So Trent and I both helped people today. Who did you help?
I didn't help anyone.
Crawler?
I helped myself.
I bet you did. Anyway, back to Mossyrock. The city council passed an ordinance allowing businesses to stay open in defiance of Governor Inslee's COVID mandates.
Yeah, and we actually, the Chronicle actually got scooped on this one.
Wow.
Dorian Munson had the mayor, Randall Sasser, on his show, I believe, on Friday. So that's at mynorthwest.com. We're pursuing a story for Tuesday's edition, and we'll try to get more in depth. But here's one quote from Mayor Sasser. He says, "I think this is a very important issue that's going on with our country and within our state right now, and we've got to stand up for what is right. They have issued the numbers by Commissioner's District, but not zip code, and currently in Mossyrock, in our 98564 zip code, there is no information that states that there is any cases whatsoever within our zip code of COVID or any deaths related to it."
So basically show us the numbers and assertion from Sasser, and do we think Lewis County will indeed show them the numbers this week?
I hope so, and we've been complaining about this for a while. And at one point, they decided that they would announce them and group together some of the smaller ones who, not to identify anyone. But I don't think there's really an excuse anymore not to do it. Our numbers are so high that I don't think that just announcing by zip code, even if you group them together, is going to identify anyone or violate anyone's privacy. And the best example is probably Grace Harbor County, that's now doing it by zip code. And it allows you to know if you're in danger, I think, to a certain extent. I don't think that Mossyrock has the same level of cases as Centralia, for instance.
Yeah. And what do we think of the move to take this up with the city council and make pass an ordinance and all that? Are we still on the if you're going to do it, just, keep your head down train?
Personally, I think that way. I think we said last week with the Brown Shack Tavern out in Salcombe, their owner had come out both in a letter to the editor and in a story saying that they're going to more or less stay open regardless. Bottom line, though, if the state decides to crack down, it won't be the city that's paying for it. It won't be the city council that's paying the fines. I know there was this is another state, but in Oregon over the weekend, there was a gym that decided to stay open. They were fined $90,000. I wouldn't anticipate that level of fine for a business in Mossyrock, but they're the ones that are assuming all the risk. So I wonder if the businesses that, and I know there's very few in town, but the businesses that would fall under this, if they're going to open just because the city council says it's okay.
Yeah, it's if you're gonna do something that maybe somebody higher above you has told you not to do, just keep your head down thing, like we said. Yeah, and I didn't have any major disagreements with Randall Sasser's comments in here until the end when he says he believes it's more of a control thing than anything else. I believe that they want to be able to control us and tell us what we need to do and get us accustomed to always following what they say. That's a little
As critical, I agree.
It's a little out there.
As critical as I have been of Jay Inslee and some of his dictates, I never have questioned his motives. I don't think that he has some desire to shrink the tax base, for instance. I have heard that theory is like, blow up this tax base and then you can pass an income tax come the next session. I don't think that's going to happen either, but I have been wrong before. I don't know. I could see other small cities doing this as well. I think I shared this with you. If 20 cities did this, either the state would have to crack down on all of them or let them all go, or just kind of pick and choose where they're going to enforce, and I think it puts them in a tough spot. Yeah. So far, I've only heard Mossyrock, though. The more popular thing I'm seeing is everyone's finding a way to have some outdoor seating. O'Blarney's, for instance, just down the street, they got a permission. Never
been there, not even once.
They got permission from the city to set up a tent right on the sidewalk. I saw the Olympic clubs got their back patio covered. I saw, Flood Valley Brewing. They were working on a covered area there too. So it's good to see that. It was kind of a laugher when the restrictions were announced, and like, well, you can serve outside in Washington in the winter.
Yeah, great weather for it.
Yeah. We had that other story on Chronline about Hoquiam. The city is using its federal money to actually buy the tents for the restaurants or rent the tents, and I thought that was a good look.
Yeah, that's cool. Speaking of COVID funding and what you can do with it, Lewis County received $1.24 million to curb COVID among the homeless. Lewis County Public Health and Social Services will receive an additional $1.24 million in CARES Act funding to, quote, prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus pandemic among individuals and families who are homeless or receiving homeless assistance. Do we know yet what specifically that funding is going to be going towards?
Yeah, I guess the funds will go to Gather Church, the Salvation Army, the Equity Institute, which I haven't heard of, Reliable Enterprises, and the Housing Resource Center. And it can go for outreach, shelter case management, rapid rehousing, prevention services, and the operation of the county's new nightly shelter over at the fairgrounds. So the prevention services, I hope that means rental assistance. I don't think that it does. I think there might be a separate pot of money for that. But I think that would be combating homelessness as well as this, because there's an eviction ban that goes through the end of the year, but that does not mean that they don't have to pay the money eventually. So when that ban gets lifted, there's going to be a lot of people owing a lot of money.
Nightcrawler, how do you feel about curbing homelessness?
I think it's good. I mean, speaking of Gather Church, recently on Thanksgiving, they were giving out meals to homeless and other people in need on Thanksgiving. So I think it's really good that they're getting some funding to help that.
Speaking of the Nightcrawler.
Have either of you seen on Reynolds Road when you're crossing the railroad tracks, if you're heading east and you look to your right, there's a whole homeless encampment over there with structures and built in and everything like
Blake
that.
Slate Junction encampment.
Yeah.
My dad was telling me about it. He's seen it somehow more than I have, and I run past there several times a week.
How big is it? Because from the road you can't really see the extent. You can just see that it's kind of built out in there.
I haven't gotten that close.
Gotcha.
I stop by a vacant lot over there and pee sometimes, but
wow,
I haven't gotten all the way in there.
Wow. How about you, be brave and run through next time and give us a report on
I
what
will
you
try
see.
to. I will try to. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow morning, and I will call you in tears at 7:35.
They are in the community, so it's. It's a large. There was some criticism, as there always is when we posted the story on Facebook. But I do think it's a real problem. Down by our house, there's a guy living under a bridge for about 3 years. So
Allegedly, yes.
Allegedly. No,
Allegedly.
he's definitely been living under the bridge for about 3 years. So, yeah.
All right. Let's see. In more local council-ish news, Centralia Mayor Pro Tem Peter Abarno resigns. Has scandal gripped the Hub City Council?
When you cut off like 75% of the headline like that, one might assume. But Centralia Mayor Pro Tem Abarno resigns from City Council after election to State House.
He's taking his talents to Olympia, it would seem.
Was the full. He won in a landslide to fill Richard DeBolt's seat in the 20th district. Hold on to that one. You're going to need that later, Crawler. And I think he won by a wider margin than anyone, I'm pretty sure.
He had 71%, the article said.
Yeah.
Max Vogt will be the new mayor pro tem. Susan Lund is still the mayor, and the other council folk retained their seats in the pecking order, I assume.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Okay. So Abarno off to Olympia. Cool.
Yeah, he
Good
had
for him.
71% of the vote in the general election, and Centralia Mayor Susan Lund said, "I'm really pleased that he's going to Olympia representing us. I don't think we could ask for any better. We are really fortunate that he knows the local area so well." And I do think you couldn't find a better replacement for Richard DeBolt in terms of someone who's just embedded in the community and all of the organizations and nonprofits.
Richard does leave some massive shoes to fill. Probably at least size 12, 12 and a half, 13 if you ask him. But I think Peter will do fine.
Yeah.
All right. This is an interesting story. Sad. Our sweet prince Chad Taylor has come down with the COVID and had a report on his experiences with the disease.
Yeah, and before we go into that, I'm going to read what you actually wrote on the show notes, which is, "Our sweet prince, Chad Taylor, bravely fights off evil anti-capitalist China virus. Definitely will live because he's brave and American."
Spot the line.
Yeah, no, he actually had another member of the council, Daryl Lund, reached out right after our podcast last week at the request of Chad Taylor. And he had been admitted to the hospital with COVID-19. As our story says, he has pre-existing condition of Parkinson's. So I think it was a little bit precaution, but also the fact he said he was coming out of his hot tub and basically passed out due to a lack of oxygen and had to be rushed to Providence, Centralia by ambulance. But he wanted to tell the story just for those out there who might be doubting the seriousness of the pandemic or the risk of catching the virus, and I thought that was a great move by him.
Yeah, that's nice by him. And who among us has not had issues getting out of their hot tub and felt ill? But in all seriousness, yeah, it was cool of Chad to come forward with that and share that story. I enjoyed it.
He sent me a text message on Thanksgiving that said, "I got released from the hospital today. I'm home with my wife, still not feeling 100%, but being home is better than being in the hospital. Happy Thanksgiving." So very happy to see him back home.
All right. True Crime Podcast coming back to the region. The Hide and Seek podcast is coming back to Thurston County. This was a big hit last year. The podcast host James Basinger investigated the decade-old Tenino cold case of what?
Nancy Moyer.
The Nancy Moyer case.
She was a Department of Ecology employee, Tenino resident who essentially vanished without a trace. Her door was unlocked. There was a glass of wine poured at her house, but nobody ever saw her again. And I think a lot of people, when Mr. Basinger showed up, were skeptical. Because, you've got this guy, he's an insurance agent, I believe, from Richland, other side of the state. But he's really a hard-working podcaster. Not like us. He actually does, he actually tries hard and goes out, does interviews. And a lot of people give him credit for the fact that there was a confession. The man later recounted, but Eric
Recanted.
Roberts, recanted. He probably recounted as well. Probably did a little bit of both. But yeah, he said he did it, called 911, said I did it, and later said that he did not. And since the authorities didn't have any actual evidence, he's still out of custody and living his life, but he is back now to...
He's looking into the 2016 disappearance of 19-year-old Tumwater resident Logan Scheindelman, which I remember seeing a lot of. There's still signs up for, this boy is missing. Have you seen him? Things like that. So it'll be pretty interesting, especially considering the way he publishes his podcast is he doesn't have it all done. He puts it up episodically, and he is still working on it as episodes are coming out, which seems like a risky move.
Yeah. It's definitely throwing the hat over the fence.
Yeah, but he does some pretty interesting work. And, if he's on the scene, we're definitely going to earn our worst podcast in Lewis County moniker.
Yeah. And so for those that don't know, on May 20th, 2016, Logan's 1996 Chrysler Sebring was found on the side of Interstate 5 near Rochester with his wallet and cell phone still in the car. He has not been seen since and is presumed dead, according to this story by Jackson Gardner. I believe it was his last story here at the Chronicle. But it's similar in that there's very little evidence, and the individual just straight up vanished. It seems there's it's not like there's any DNA evidence or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to see what he comes up with. He has an extremely loyal following. We posted our story just that he was going to be doing it, and within hours it had doubled in reach of anything we've posted on Facebook in quite some time.
And it is extremely impressive that he could jump into the Nancy Moyer case and identify a suspect and get some variety of a confession on mic, and to just accomplish that and do the homework to get to that point is ridiculously impressive.
And he wasn't afraid in listening to that podcast. He was going through the investigative reports and picking out names and reaching out to them any way he could. Fearless is a very, very positive attribute to have. If you're a journalist, he's not a journalist, but he seems to be using some of those tools as a podcaster.
I feel like if you are doing an investigative podcast like that, you've earned your big J.
I agree. Didn't you, Crawler? You ended up going down to Tenino, Rochester area when they were closing off and arresting Eric Roberts, right? If I remember that correctly.
I know I was definitely covering some of the Nancy Moyer stuff. I don't know exactly if I was there when they arrested him, but I know I was definitely covering some of the Nancy Moyer stuff.
I just remember something about Will, our former reporter, jumping over fences and trying to get a good look at the house while they were out there searching. It took quite a long time. So yeah, check out his podcast, which isn't hard to find. Hide and Seek is the name.
All right. And another story on Dr. Rob McElhaney. This is Our Time to Shine on the Mary's Corner Clinic. Cool guy. He's had the clinic since 2006. He's a big Toledo guy. He's always at the games, and I think I've heard reports of him stitching up a kid in the locker room or something like that once or twice. And he is not to be confused with Rob McElhaney, who plays Mac in Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Thank you for pointing that out. There's a lot of confused listeners.
It took me a minute to figure out the connection there, but anything to add about Dr. McElhaney?
He also graces the cover of our Best of Lewis County, so...
Oh, he does. Look at
Mary's
that.
Corner won Best Medical Clinic, and we tried to go with a nice pandemic-ish theme this year for our Best of Lewis County. And so he did end up on the front. He was the first clinic, or I should say Mary's Corner was the first clinic in Lewis County to offer drive-through COVID-19 testing. And you have been out there for that, Nightcrawler. You've also been out to the Providence Hawks Prairie Clinic, which has 4 to 5 hour wait times, or at least did before the holidays. I've always been curious, do you feel like you're putting yourself at risk for the job when we send you to places where people congregate who think they might have COVID-19?
It's definitely a little weird being the only person out there not in a hazmat suit while they're doing COVID testing and there's 1,000 cars out there lined up around the parking lot. But I haven't felt sick. I don't think I've had COVID, but I've been everywhere where you think COVID would be. So I've been wearing a mask and I've been keeping my distance. So I think those are key points in avoiding COVID.
Do you hold your breath really tight when you, do you sit in your car and just go, and then run out and shoot and then run back to your car and exhale?
Yes, that's exactly what I do. So I got to get a big breath before I go out there, get all my photos, and I rush back to my car.
Do you write notes on your hand, like don't lick as many doorknobs this time?
Yes. Every time. Gotta have those notes, otherwise, those doorknobs.
I don't know. We have a lot of
Yep, those doorknobs.
so tempting. We have commenters online who frequently say when we run your photos of people getting tested that we're just trying to scare them. What would you say to those people?
No, I definitely wouldn't
fearmonger.
say we're trying to scare them. We're definitely trying to keep everybody informed. I always keep my hand sanitizer on me, and I make sure that I'm always out there and just showing you guys exactly what I see.
Yeah. Well, that's very big of you.
All right, Crawler. And now you are on the hot seat. We have a Nightcrawler news quiz for you.
Oh, no.
Put your phone down. You're going to have to answer these off the top of your head. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, first question. Who is the lieutenant governor of Washington?
Wilcox?
Washington State.
Oh.
That changes
He's
it?
froze.
I'll pass on this one.
It's just no... It is not Wilcox.
Okay, he's not going to find it.
The outgoing was
Habib.
Cyrus Habib.
Oh.
And the new lieutenant governor is
Denny Heck.
Oh, Denny Heck. That's
Yeah,
right.
that was what you were going to guess, wasn't it? That was your next one.
Yeah, that was the next one.
All right. Your
Wait,
second question.
let's pause for a second. Last week, Attorney General Bob Ferguson and Secretary of State Kim Wyman put out a special statement on what would happen should the governor's office become vacant. Did anyone else find that highly suspicious?
Hedging their bets, eh?
I'm just saying.
Is Inslee scared of Abarno coming in to Olympia and he's going to take his talents to the other Washington, perhaps?
And if anyone's wondering what would happen, Denny Heck would become the new governor, assuming this happens after the first of the year, and then there would be an election in November. That's how that would go down. But the thought is this: maybe Inslee's going to be selected by maybe President-elect Biden.
Yeah, maybe.
Alleged President-elect Joe Biden. That's what this podcast is sticking by.
That's yes.
Count the votes, Aaron.
Well, I
Stop
think
the count.
We also have to say maybe Governor Inslee.
All right, Crawler, here's the next one. And the only reason we're doing this to you is because you take such beautiful photos, but we've long suspected you have no idea what's going on. Who is the mayor of Centralia?
Well, it used to be Bonnie Canaday.
Oh, come on.
Years ago.
Going deep. We literally just talked about her. Like, we both made sure to mention her name twice. Nothing? Susan Lund.
Wow.
Susan Lund.
There you go.
All right. Who are the three lawmakers who represent the 20th legislative district? I'm not sure I could list all these guys.
Peter Abarno?
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh, he's about to be. Yeah.
Who's Abarno taking over for?
Richard DeBolt.
There you go.
Okay.
That's one.
Let's see.
Name rhymes with Ron Lon.
No, that was it. That's Ron Lon.
All right, John Braun. That was
John
the second
Braun.
one. You're not going to get the third one. It's Ed
don't think
Orcutt.
so.
You're really doing poorly at this. You're going to have to study up for
I
next
am.
year.
I wouldn't have got that. I would have gotten maybe one or two of those.
Next one. How old is Aaron?
Wait, hold on. Are we going off of looks or?
It's a straight up question. Yeah, we're going off of looks.
It's a trick question. Yes.
We're going off of looks. How old
I
is
actually
he?
don't know how old Aaron is.
Just throw a stab out there.
I'm gonna say he is 32.
Ooh.
Wow. All right. Yeah, that's a great answer, Crawler.
He's actually 49.
Wow. Okay.
37 years old for now.
All right, we only have two more. You want to ask the next one, Aaron?
Okay, Nightcrawler. When was the Chronicle newspaper founded? This is not a trick question.
It's not how old it looks. God forbid it's how old it looks.
Let's see. I believe it was 1893.
Oh,
Close.
yeah,
Wow.
you're close. 1889.
Oh, okay.
What was the name of the original newspaper in Chehalis?
Ooh.
Chehalis B Nugget.
Yep.
I
Bee
didn't know
Nugget.
Yeah, we're
A
teaching
mighty-
you up, Crawler.
A mighty newspaper.
Learning my history here.
What counties does the Chronicle cover?
Lewis County
And
Counties.
and South Thurston County.
Good job. Yeah.
There's one more.
The Greater Lewis County.
Like, that's an extra county. You were just out there because the teachers in Oakville were delivering goods.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we cover Grace Harbor County.
South
as
Grace
well.
Harbor. Yeah.
People don't realize this, but Oakville is the most newspaper covered city in all of Washington, in my opinion. because they have the Olympian that covers them, the Daily World, us, the Vedette. And
don't forget about the Vedette.
And the Oakville Cruiser. I'm not going to forget about that either. I don't think it still exists, but it did for a time. It was stapled together.
What was the Rochester? The Rochester Independent? Or that was the
Rochester
Toronto
Sun.
Independent. The Rochester Sun. Yeah.
Rochester Sun. A Duval property.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of coverage out in Oakville. They've got their pick, and I don't know that they care for any of us, to be frank, because I don't think anyone goes out there unless it's bad news.
They do. We're really just cranking through this news dump list. Business feature roundup. Do we have anything new?
Yeah, we have a few of them, or actually just a couple of them. One of them, which I love because it affects us out on the Watch Prairie, we have not had our own coffee shop for a while because Nervous Ned's had closed down.
Oh yeah, they revamped it, reopened it. It's the Cup now.
It's the Cup now.
They got fresh donuts.
Yeah, and this was an Eric Trent joint. And I know a lot of cynical people be like, oh no, another coffee place. This place sounds kind of cool. It's owned by a couple local folk. And I don't know, it sounds pretty neat. They've got some, let's see here.
Who are the new owners of the
I'll just
the
read
Cup?
his sleeve. When you have a friend who can whip up top-notch espressos, you take full advantage of it. That's exactly what husband and wife Marco Bertucci and Jesse Gilliam did when the duo moved to Centralia after running a construction company. In Puyallup for 5 years, they noticed that Nervous Ned's coffee stand had closed. Bertucci, who grew up in Morton, and Gilliam, who is from Mineral, had no prior experience owning or operating a coffee stand, but being coffee lovers and entrepreneurs and having a friend, Alma Mendoza, who spoiled them with delicious espressos for years, they decided to take a chance. So they bought Nervous Ned's during the pandemic, and it's all revamped and reopened. I haven't had a chance to stop there yet, but it sounds cool. It sounds like a neat little business. They've got drinks for kids. I've got kids, so finally. I might swing them through there. Hopefully there's a little booze in those drinks for kids.
Says Bloody Mary.
Calm them down a bit. So yeah, that was the first business here. And let's see, there was one other that we covered last week that I also enjoyed.
Bertucci's. There was a number of Bertucci kids early in my sports editor days playing sports out in Morton. One of them, Gianni Bertucci, was a phenomenal receiver and I think safety for the football team that went to 3 state championship games. Fun kid to watch. I also interviewed him one year after they had lost the state championship, which is an interesting measure of a kid's character. Sometimes you get kids that are really torn up and just like heartbroken about it. It's pretty sad. And I talked to him afterwards and he was just like, yeah, that sucks. We lost, man.
I always love those
kids. See you later.
Those kids that just have perspective, like they're wise beyond their years. There's like the whole team's crying and the other one's like snapping into a Slim Jim and
he was just like bouncing out of the locker room like, see what we're doing next. I don't know. Getting out of here.
Wasn't former photographer Pete Castor famous for shooting photos of crying kids?
He did, and one kid even screamed at him one time at the Tacoma Dome, like, have you no decency or something
that's what it was. And we all know Pete has no decency.
Of course he does not.
Not like his successor here, Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler, do you focus in on the kids that are crying at ball games?
I wouldn't say that I focus in, but I always try to get snaps whenever opportunities arise where emotions are shown.
Do you ever aim for the Pete Castor special photo, which is right after the conclusion of a championship game or a huge game? There's a crowd of kids on the field or court celebrating, and one kid's from the losing team walking off, and you get them in the losing kid in the foreground of the shot and the championship celebration in the back.
Oh, you got it. That's a classic Pete. Classic Pete.
I love that shot every time I see it. So yeah, that's our. Did you have another business feature?
Yeah, we also had Napa Vine Grill relishes serving the community quality meals. I don't want to mispronounce their name, but it's a family operation. Owners Rhonda, Michael Sr., and Michael Jr. Aug? I don't know how you pronounce that. Aughe. Weathered the pandemic to offer completely fresh ingredients and meals to the Napa Vine area. That was another Eric Trent joint as he continues to write all our business features. And he had a nice opening just with the whole family sitting around the table on March 19th and kind of debating, are we going to be able to keep doing this with the shutdown? And they decided to make a go of it, and it was a good decision by them. They just started racking up the regulars. But now, of course, they and every other restaurant and bar have been hit with more restrictions. They actually, I saw posted to Facebook yesterday begging people to just wear your mask and stop coming in maskless, complaining at us. It's not our rule. We just want to not get shut down, so we're going to ask you that you wear a mask.
Yeah.
It was one of those stories that made me really want to go out there and try it. He noted that they don't have a walk-in freezer or anything like that. All their food is bought fresh. And the food actually looks really, really good. You took these photos, right?
Yeah. No, the food looked great. The people were super friendly. I think it's a great place to visit.
When you're out shooting these business features for food, dining establishments, stuff like that, do they ever give you food?
Oh, occasionally, yeah. We always are taking photos of food, and occasionally that food doesn't have anywhere to go, so they'll send it back with us, and we'll bring it back here to the office.
Wow.
Real classless move, Crawler.
I don't eat the food
J
usually
school,
myself,
they called that
but-
payola. And I bet you threw away all the photos of rats and things afterwards when that happened.
No
The
rats
rats
at this
eating the
place,
food.
and I actually didn't eat any food at this place, so there's no payola. But the
Oh, it looks
food,
good,
the food
though.
does look really good. So.
What is it? Just like a traditional American fare?
Yeah, I think so. That's what it looks like, burgers and that kind of thing.
Man, I could go for a burger. Haven't had one in days.
It gets to be like white noise at this point because everybody's saying it. But if you got a little money in your pocket and you're still employed, go out and buy some food. Eat out every day if you can.
Yeah.
I was pretty much doing that already, so I'm well positioned to help my community moving forward.
You're just shaking your fist at McDonald's. You're welcome.
Yeah, that's the only places I go.
All right. Time for our People's Champion of the Week. This week's Champion of the People is Rochester Superintendent Kim Fry. Fry has been chosen by the Washington Association of School Administrators, WASA. They have a building in Olympia for her outstanding contribution to education to receive the Leadership Award for the 2019-20 school year.
I like my favorite part of the story. She's a Rochester native. She graduated from Rochester High School, got her first teaching job out of college at Rochester Primary School, worked as a principal at the primary school, and has been serving as the district superintendent for the past 11 years. So that's a lot of commitment to one school district.
Yeah.
It reminds me of my commitment to the Chronicle.
Except that time you took a leave of absence to go to Montana.
I have on multiple occasions tried to abandon this place.
Just
pulls
leaving
me
for
back
that-
in.
Just going to that big sky country, staring up at that big Montana sky, writing your stories.
She says, I think a key to being a good leader is building leadership characteristics in other people, and that's important to me. I think that everybody has leadership capacity within them, and oftentimes people don't recognize that quality within them. I don't think you have leadership skills, Aaron. for
Putting
what
on
it's
your
worth.
cowboy hat. Oh shucks, gonna miss this deadline, Earl.
Boy, howdy. Why do you think people in Montana have southern accents? I don't understand.
I've been watching a lot of the program Yellowstone.
Yeah, with Kevin Costner. Do they
Yeah.
have southern accents there?
No, of course not.
I can tell you in Montana, they don't all have southern accents. That makes no sense geographically. It just makes no sense at all.
It's a good show. They kill somebody on the ranch almost every week, and then they just like shove them off a cliff. It's like, well, time to go back to Murder Ranch. Anyway, time for our Sirens Banger of the Week. This week's entry, chosen by me moments ago, is man charged with attempting to elude officers fails to appear for court hearing. He eluded
So
them
who
twice.
won? Who won in that case?
Well. There's nothing like hilarious about the case, but just the fact that somebody who was charged with attempting to elude officers also eluded court. There's something, a little poetic about that.
Yeah, and this happened out in our neighborhood. The vehicle he was in originally, not when he didn't show up to court, crashed into the bridge at Schaefer Park, and the driver got out and ran. The officer, Ruben Ramirez, one of Centralia's canine officers,
Oh, yeah.
deployed his dog, which caught the driver by his boot and held him until Ramirez arrived.
Wow. Great work, Ruben. Great work.
If that dog hadn't caught him, he could have ended up down in your pasture,
He could have.
down in your hayfield.
He could have. Down in the lower field. Yeah. What's Ruben's dog these days?
I
What's his
can't
name? Is
remember
that
off the
Jax?
top of my head. You'd think he'd be in here.
Pax?
but-
I think so.
Did you take photos of Pax?
Yeah, I've taken photos of Pax.
And so you're sure that's the dog's name?
Not sure that that's the name, but I know
It's going to be in the
that
quiz next week.
Shocking.
Ruben's dog has found multiple people while I've been taking photos. So
Okay. All right. I don't have any Facebook comments of the week. As I mentioned earlier, if you want to go on Facebook and find a comment you like, you're more than welcome to send it to us as a reminder of my failure to harvest comments, or just read it aloud and make some jokes
Why
on
don't
your
we
own.
just roll through in real time? I posted the story earlier of Eric Trent discovered this feisty little fella trapped in a drainage pipe. It was the possum up in Miller, Sylvania.
Uh-huh.
And we had a comment. It's a possum, just a big rat, which I kind of agree with that one.
Wow. Good comment. Crawler, you got any Facebook
We had a
comments?
comment on Dr. Rob McElhaney. Such a great doctor.
Mac?
I agree. It's a great doctor.
Let's see. Here's a comment. I love to see people hugging. It's on a story about Oakville.
Oh, yeah. Washington auditor warns unemployment agency on interference with audits into massive fraud. This was one that went up earlier today. We have a commenter who says Inslee probably has the money.
Yeah, probably.
Another commenter says another Democratic kickback scheme does sound more likely than a Nigerian prince hacking the system, doesn't it? And she still has her job? Another commenter.
Let's see. Oh, here's a story on state to open small business grant program next week. This isn't America. We didn't elect a king. Wonder what bullshit tax dictator Inslee will put on us next. He is a worthless, un-American, tax-hungry, commie, socialist, Democrat. Wow.
Oh, Democrat.
Democrat.
When they bust that out, you know they mean business. We have multiple comments on man charged with attempting to elude officers fails to appear in court. You really expected that an illegal would show up for court, says one person. Wow. Just assuming again, this is a responding quote, do you have proof that he is an illegal, or is it because he is Hispanic? So in your Trump mind, minorities are here illegally?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And then we had, where's our prosecuting attorney's statement? Apparently he's got to make statements on every case now. So there's that.
Let's see. Letter to the editor, overwhelmed with gratitude, gets no comments. Typical.
Letter to the editor on the constitutionality of lockdowns and mandatory masks does get comments.
Shocking.
Commenter says this issue was decided 105 years ago. There is no debate. All suits against the mandates have failed. Time to put the masks on and move forward. And this one's even better. If you can smell a fart through jeans and a mask, masks don't work.
Why are you smelling fart through...
They've done the science, so you don't have to.
The fart has to come through somebody's jeans first. I was imagining this guy like inside a pair of jeans sniffing farts.
Another comment, wearing a mask is not a legal law, in quotes. It is not constitutional by any stretch of the imagination, but where to? One for you and one for those you meet that don't. So there you go. That's nice. Says you're not legally, don't have to, but maybe you should.
Here's a wholesome comment. Mossyrock Hatchery restocks rainbow trout in 2 county ponds. Crawler, you mentioned this. Comment just says, let's go fishing. And with that, we're gonna wrap up this edition of Chronicle News Dump. We'll be back next week with, I promise, a better episode.
Better co-host. Come on, Crawler. I told you to bring your A game. I told you. I was pulling for you.
You're asking me about city council meetings and stuff
Under
I don't
the Mendoza
cover,
line in the Crawler News Quiz. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.